Welcome back to another episode of Love Conquers. This is your girl, Ruti, and today we have a crucial conversation lined up. Today we're delving into the complexities of relationships, exploring the why and how of toxic relationships. So let's start by understanding what we mean by toxic relationships. These are relationships that are harmful and detrimental to the well-being of individuals involved. At least one partner in toxic relationships causes harm in some way, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally. This may be intentional abuse in the relationship or manipulative behaviors that leave one partner feeling trapped or burned out. These behaviors may have been learned or experienced during childhood or as an adult, and any expectation of other behaviors has not been established. And I'm bringing this conversation up because if everybody is in tune with TikTok, and if you have not heard, this woman went viral, ReesaTeesa, and it has sparked the conversation of people who are manipulative in relationships and how that can become toxic. So before I can get into the whole ReesaTeesa conversation, I want to discuss the signs of a toxic relationship. So basically, those are mutual disrespect, emotional manipulation. Oftentimes you feel lonely even when you're with the person. Your needs aren't met. You feel undervalued. You find yourself wondering if you like the person. You resent them. One or both of you start having passive aggressive behavior. Your self-esteem is deteriorating. We've seen out there people physically abusing themselves, emotionally, mentally, even sexually. There's some type of kind of revenge behavior going on. There's a whole bunch of signs of a toxic relationship. Now, this is where I'm going to touch on the whole ReesaTeesa. And you guys are wondering, who is this woman? If you haven't heard of who she is. Now, ReesaTeesa is a woman who went viral on TikTok for having a series of why the fuck, or who the fuck did I marry? Sorry, that's what it's called. Who the fuck did I marry? And she basically, to make the long story short, she basically got with a man who she met online. And basically this man throughout the whole entire relationship was lying about how much money he had in the bank using Google pictures. And she basically fell for it, right? But people were so intrigued because I'll give you guys an example. So basically he lied and said he was a VP of a condiment company. He took this lady out to buy, quote unquote, a car, and he test drove a whole bunch of cars to later not end up buying one. So, she also, to make matters worse, she got pregnant but ended up losing the baby. So throughout the whole entire story, you're just like, oh my gosh. And she takes accountability for not basically paying attention to the signs, the red flags. A lot of people say, why does this happen? I was watching a video and someone brought up a good point that this is cognitive dissonance. You're like, what is that? If you don't know what that is, it's the discomfort or tension that arises when someone holds conflicting beliefs or attitudes or values. So it's basically like you want to think good about this other person and you want to make sure that, it goes to the point where you want to seek harmony with your thoughts and actions. So your perception of that person, you just change it and kind of make excuses for them. And she does take accountability for this, and she's a great storyteller, by the way, but we just wonder, like, why? Why do people get into these relationships? And most of it can be low self-esteem. You probably feel like you won't get anyone better than that. You are replicating relationship dynamics that you grew up seeing or witnessed. Lack of boundaries can be another reason. And one of the things that I would talk to my students about, because I would joke with them and say, you got your little girlfriend or boyfriend. But there came a point where one of my students, I called him Rico Suave because he had a girlfriend every other 2 weeks. And I would say, yo, Rico Suave, like, what's good with you? Until he came to my classroom sad. Good looking kid, handsome. I said, what's up with you? And he started talking about how someone messaged him saying his girlfriend was cheating on him. And I said, how do you know that? Because someone told me. I said, did you ask questions? Did you confront this person? He said no. And then I basically asked him, why do you have a whole bunch of girlfriends? Like, 1 week you have this one, and I was exaggerating, right? But he understood what I was saying. And he's like, I don't want to be lonely. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're a teenager and you don't want to feel lonely, it's sad. It kind of made me wonder, what are we teaching our kids? Now with ReesaTeesa, she wanted to think good about this person. Like, you don't wake up one day and start being suspicious. You want to think highly about the person you're with. You don't ever want to think negative, because that's when the feelings of, come up of, why am I with this person? And as I was saying with cognitive dissonance, you just make up excuses for the other person, because all in all, people, you don't expect somebody to be lying about stuff they shouldn't be lying about. I also want to talk about the fact that, and this is another sign, when you start isolating yourself to please the other person, you start breaking relationships, friendships with people because of your partner. Now, we could agree to disagree about, you can't have single friends when you're in a relationship, which my thoughts on that is, you could have friends who are single. You just need to know your place. You need to know that you're in a different lane. There are certain boundaries we need to build. So if you're in a toxic relationship and you find yourself questioning your decisions, one of the things I ask is for you to seek support. Seek support, write things down. Now, ReesaTeesa started doing audio diaries where she would talk about what was happening to her, because she didn't feel like she should be telling people what she was going through. Because obviously and naturally, if you talk to your family about certain things, they're going to have your back. They're going to want to fight everybody. So those are things we can do. Talk to somebody. Seek professional help, because you're going to go into a spiral, and you're going to have feelings of guilt. And for those of you who know that you're in a toxic relationship, feel like you're trapped, you're not. It is an illusion. You're not trapped. You are worthy. You are important. And I also feel like sometimes, and people might disagree with me, but sometimes you have to go through these things to know your worth. And unfortunately, because of that toxic relationship, people gain Trust issues. I know I've found myself in situationships that I should not have been in. Now that I'm older, I kind of understand that. So we have to think about, who are we with? Who are we having children with? And some of us have had children with toxic people, but that doesn't mean that you can continue it. I know that sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we don't feel like there's a way out, where we feel that, and I say we because I've been in situations where, you know, what do I do? So you kind of find yourself asking these questions. And for those of you who have to see other people in toxic relationships, I mean, look at Krishan and Blueface, two rappers, if we can call them that. No shade, no tea. But two young people fighting in public, having children. And I hold no judgment, but this girl went and tattooed this man's face on her face. A man who has disrespected her in public, said that wasn't his child. Foolishness. Utter and complete foolishness at this point. And I hate to say like that because, you know, if you are listening to this and you are in a toxic relationship, this is not to judge you, but sometimes you just have to say enough is enough. Sometimes you just have to force yourself out of these situations. And sometimes we do have to wait till shit hits the fan. You know, sometimes that needs to happen. You know, because like I said before, nobody wants to ever think that the other person's bad. Here's my idea on this. I feel like we look at grown people, like with ReesaTeesa, like, why would this man lie about where he worked? Why would this man... And we could talk about a whole bunch of reasons why. We can say he's just never been taught to take accountability for his actions. We can say this man has a mental illness, because at this point it's a mental illness. If you got to lie about your whereabouts, if you have to lie about where you work, that you going... And she brought up a good point where she stated that when they went to buy cars, quote unquote, she says that maybe he got a thrill from seeing someone have something, be happy, and then taking it away. Kind of like a control, like a power control thing. And that happens. Like, there are people who grew up as children who felt that they had no control. So when they get to adulthood, they go and seek out how to gain control from someone, how to manipulate someone. So that's why we have to be careful what we're teaching our children. And a lot of people, and I'll just touch on this a little bit, a lot of people, and I've even heard this from adults, but I didn't teach you that. Baby, you don't have to sit down with a chalkboard with your children and say, don't do this. Sometimes, most of the time, they look at you. They observe you. We forget these are human beings. But I digress. Some of this stems from childhood. So, you know, let's think about ourselves. So I want to talk about how can people move forward? And there's a whole bunch of stuff on what you can do to move forward. First is acknowledgement. Acknowledge you are in a toxic relationship. Acknowledge and stop being proud. Stop being proud that you have low self-esteem. I had to get to a point in my life where I had to tell myself, and I'll be transparent, where I had to tell myself I have low self-esteem. Because I had previous relationships where, I would seek out attention. And I own up to that. I take accountability for that. I wanted attention. They would give me attention, so I did anything. And that sucks, But that's why I say you have to acknowledge, as hard as it is to say, this is what's wrong with me. Because we can talk all day about what's wrong with them, but we also got to talk about what made them think that they were allowed to do that. And it starts by acknowledging ourselves. Another one can be, finding empowerment, moving forward, finding things that we love to do, like self-care, going to see a therapist, maybe purging, cleaning out the home, taking things out. Sometimes you got to cut the cord, building healthy relationship with yourself, building boundaries with yourself. Those are some things I thought of that can potentially help you. I know with me, I literally sometimes have, and this is not with my relationship, but in general, do a cleanse of social media. Look at the pages you follow. Unfollow them. Get off of social media for a bit. Find something you love to do. And maybe you do have something from your childhood you need to heal. And you need to start there. So, today we've delved into the intricacies of toxic relationships. And for those of you listening out there, tell me in the comments, write to me, let me know what you think about toxic relationships. Why are these things happening? And, what do you do to build a healthy relationship and find connections? So I want you guys to remember, we all deserve healthy and fulfilling connections with people. If you're someone is struggling, don't hesitate to seek support. So with that, I leave you, mi gente. Thank you for joining me here at Love Conquers. If you found this episode helpful, share it with someone who might benefit. Stay tuned for more insightful conversations on relationship and personal growth. Until next time, take care, mi gente. And remember to embrace and remember that love conquers all. Wanna hear you go.